If you're dying to see what happens next and want to stay 5 episodes ahead in this series and others, then why wait? Join our awesome community of over 500 members on Patreon, where they're already enjoying the latest episodes right now for as little as $2.50 for your first month. So what are you waiting for? Hop over to Patreon after this video and get exclusive early access. With that said, drop a like, leave a comment, subscribe to the page, and I'll see you in the next one. Chunks of floating rock hung motionless in the scorched sky, as if time itself dared not move. Clouds had long since scattered, torn away by the earlier shockwaves. Every breath in this world now came with the weight of destruction. Gohan stood his ground, his eyes locked onto the source of the unimaginable power spike ahead. God Piccolo stood beside him, muscles tensed, antennas twitching. Piccolo's voice broke the silence. Did you feel that? His tone wasn't surprised. It was disturbed. His energy just went through the roof. Suddenly, the air behind them shifted. Slower, heavier. It wasn't another enemy. It was them. Goku and Vegeta, now back in their base forms, staggered in. Their bodies were wrecked, burnt out completely. The incredible fusion they'd unleashed earlier, the last card in their deck, had drained every last drop of energy from their battered forms. It was like the light had gone out of 2 twin suns. Vegeta was the first to fall, his knees slamming into the cracked ground beneath. The proud Saiyan prince clenched his fists, trying to resist gravity itself. A second later, Goku collapsed beside him, landing hard on one hand, then both knees. He groaned. "This is it, Vegeta. I don't think my body can go any further." His breath was shallow, his voice dry, burnt out like the last flickers of a dying star. Vegeta tried to rise, gritting his teeth in pure defiance, but his muscles spasmed. The damage, the pain, finally hit all at once. The price of Ultra Ego and Dark Siphoning was coming back for vengeance. His scream cut across the battlefield, a raw surge of agony. His body jerked forward. Purple lightning cracked around him as his energy surged in violent bursts, completely unregulated. His cheeks flushed red. Veins pulsed through his arms as he tried to suppress the agony, pressing one hand over his stomach. Then, unexpectedly, Goku lurched again. He clutched his chest, gasping. The air around him twisted as if reacting to something deep within him breaking loose. He didn't have Dark Siphoning. That power belonged to Vegeta. But during their fusion, both had shared the pain. Both had sustained the damage. "What's happening to them?" God Piccolo asked, stepping slightly back. His eyes darted between the 2 Saiyan warriors behind him. Gohan didn't take his eyes off them. "It's the backlash from Vegeta's abilities," he said with grim certainty. "From Ultra Ego." "No," came another voice. Calm, older, Wukong. But he wasn't standing there. He was speaking from inside Gohan's mind. "It's more than just Ultra Ego," Wukong said in a low, serious tone only Gohan could hear. "The real threat is the side effect of Dark Siphoning. I know that technique well. It's a forbidden power from the demon race, meant to drain God Ki from enemies, but the cost is steep. And now, it's claiming its toll." Gohan's expression hardened. "What do you mean?" Wukong didn't hesitate. "If the user's heart rate spikes, like it is now, it stops giving power and starts taking it instead. It no longer pulls from stamina. It goes deeper. It drains life itself." Piccolo turned sharply. "Are you saying Goku's life energy is being used up?" "Yes," Wukong answered. "Because he doesn't carry demon blood. Vegeta does. That's why Vegeta can control it. Survive it. Barely. But Goku? He's never meant to wield that kind of power. Through fusion, he inherited the effect, but not the resistance. And now, it's eating him alive." A pulse of black and purple energy surged from Goku's back. His eyes bulged. He grabbed his chest again. "His stamina's gone," said Wukong. "And since the fusion burned it all, the siphoning technique is using what's left. His life force. It's a cursed gift. One made for demons, not Saiyans." God Piccolo turned his head, narrowing his eyes. "Wait a second, Broly? No, Gohan? Is this the man you told me was in your head? Back on Namek?" Gohan blinked, stunned. You can hear him?" Piccolo gave a sharp nod. "So that's his name, Wukong. Thanks to this new draconic fusion, I can hear everything you do." Gohan's jaw tightened. "Wow, you weren't kidding." Before Gohan could respond, before any words could even form, Goku's body arched back violently. "Ah! Gah!" he screamed. His voice ripped through the air like a blade tearing the sky. His chest heaved, his pupils dilated. Dark lightning surged across his limbs, as if something inside him had snapped and gone feral. The pain, he couldn't finish. Another shockwave burst from his body as his aura flickered uncontrollably, black and silver energy spiraling around him like it wanted to rip free. Kakarot! Vegeta barked, forcing his head up. The prince of all Saiyans, though still on one knee, had recovered more than Goku. His breathing was labored, but steady. That same demon blood running through his veins was doing its job, adjusting his body, stabilizing his inner energy. I've adapted, Vegeta muttered, his tone almost confused. The pain's gone, but I've got nothing left in the tank. He tried to rise. His legs trembled, but he stayed down. And then, laughter. It started low, amused. Then, it grew into full-blown mockery. From above, hovering effortlessly in the air, the Guardian observed it all. Ha 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 ha. Oh wow, he chuckled, arms crossed. I don't know exactly what's happening down there, but from the look on your faces, it's not good. He tilted his head, grinning like a man with time to burn. Well, not for you mortals at least. The Guardian's eyes gleamed now with bloodlust. I knew that pathetic fusion of yours wouldn't last forever, but I must admit, you cockroaches lasted longer than expected. His smile dropped. But now your deaths are inevitable. And with that, he vanished. Not blinked, not phased. Vanished. Even time couldn't track his movement. The very air where he'd stood turned into a vapor trail of warped light, a mere mirage of his former spot. Then, boom! He was already there, descending like a missile, his fist aimed at the downed Saiyan warriors, Goku and Vegeta, completely helpless. His voice rang out, almost casually. For all the trouble you've caused Xeno-sama, it ends now. Time for you two to die. His hand clenched into a fist, glowing with forbidden god energy, ready to crush them like bugs. But then, a blur. An arm intercepted the strike mid-air with terrifying precision. God Piccolo. He stood between the Guardian and the Saiyans, like a wall of willpower. One glowing hand caught the Guardian's incoming punch cleanly, airborne, one-handed. The impact was apocalyptic. A gamma radiation shockwave erupted outward from their clash, green-tinted rings of destructive energy tearing across the landscape. Boulders disintegrated, mountains cracked, the ground splintered for miles. The Guardian's eyes widened. He hadn't expected this, not from a mortal. Piccolo didn't flinch. Where do you think you're going? He asked coldly, his grip tightening as he bent the Guardian's arm backward slightly. It didn't hurt the Guardian, but it surprised him. For the first time in this fight, he had to think. Then, snap. The Guardian responded with a sharp left hook while his right arm was restrained. Piccolo's instincts flared. He dropped his grip and tilted his head just enough to avoid the blow, but it came close. The Guardian didn't stop. Boom, boom, boom! He blurred again, faster. His figure flickered between dimensions, moving even quicker than before. Faster than light, faster than thought. In an instant, he was back on top of Piccolo. Too fast, Piccolo muttered, stepping back, trying to put some distance between them. But it was too late. The Guardian unleashed a torrent of blows, his fists multiplying into a storm of mirage punches. Yet, every single strike missed. Inches, the Guardian hissed. Each fist stopped just shy of Piccolo's head, chest, legs, as if Piccolo already knew where they'd land. What the? The Guardian growled. He pushed harder, faster, weaving in spirals, using multi-phase footwork, even layering feints and dimensional displacements. Still, nothing hit. This is impossible, he snarled. He's not faster than me. How is he dodging every single blow? And then it hit him. He's reading my mind? He stopped mid-attack, hovering back, shocked. That's the only thing that makes sense. He knows what I'm going to do before I do it. He was half right, but the truth was even more dangerous. God Piccolo wasn't reading his mind. He was hearing it. Ever since fusing with the Eternal Dragons, Piccolo had awakened a power most mortals couldn't even comprehend. Every thought, the Guardian's next move, his strategy, even his muscle twitches, were echoing into Piccolo's ears before they happened. Combat precognition, thought to action interception. That's how he was keeping up. At that moment, Piccolo reached out telepathically. His voice echoed across the mental plane, calm but urgent. Brohan, listen, I can't hold him forever. Figure out a way to help Goku. Now. Brohan stood frozen for a moment, eyes locked on the battle in the sky. Then, without turning his head, he spoke inwardly. King? His mental voice echoed across the vast inner space of his mind. You said this backlash. It's draining life energy, right? Wukong's voice answered calmly, like a wise general watching from beyond the clouds. Yes, he replied. Life energy, spirit ki, it's all being pulled from Goku to feed the siphon's demands. Brohan clenched his jaw. His golden aura flickered. Then, I have a plan, he said aloud. His tone was confident, but heavy with something deeper. Responsibility, regret. Kai is my domain. I've mastered every state of it. Energy, spirit, divine, primal. I can control it. I can bend it. I can redirect it. Fixing this should be simple. Wukong hesitated. But there's a cost, Brohan continued, reading the concern. I can't just create ki. I can only move it, take it, redistribute it. His eyes drifted upward to the blackened sky, then slowly downward across the broken battlefield. Universe 7, it's the only one left. If I extract ki on this scale, to replenish Goku's life force, I'd have to steal it from others, from across the galaxy, from people who wouldn't survive the loss. His voice cracked slightly. A lot of people would die. A pause. He shut his eyes. The screams of the innocent he'd already sacrificed echoed in his mind. Nameless, faceless lives, traded for power, for peace. He had once sworn to undo it all. He'd gathered the Dragon Balls to bring them back. But that hope had vanished. Piccolo had fused with every eternal dragon to save them all. There were no Dragon Balls left. Now there was only him. There's another way, Brohan said. I could give Goku my life energy. That might stabilize him, but if I do that, it'll break the fusion. I'll be split apart. He shook his head violently, the pressure spinning in his skull. And if that happens, we're screwed. Then, space itself cracked. A shimmering rift in the sky twisted open with a howl, like a black hole screaming into the world. Out of it, two figures emerged, levitating with impossible grace. Two presences that turned even the atmosphere sharp and dense. Lord Beerus and Lord Frieza. Their power signatures struck the battlefield like thunderbolts. The wind reversed direction. Debris lifted off the ground. Even the clouds rippled backward. They hovered in silence, glowing faintly, but their faces weren't calm. They were shocked. What in the hell is going on here? Beerus said, eyes wide. His usual bored demeanor was gone. Panic was in his voice. Frieza squinted downward, shielding his eyes from the overwhelming light. Is that the Namekian? He asked. But how? His voice trembled. He's radiating so much power. I can barely breathe. The entire planet pulsed with energy. The air was thick like soup. If they hadn't been gods, they would have passed out from the sheer weight of the energy field alone. Then Beerus saw them. Down below, Vegeta and Goku collapsed, drained, dying. His face twisted. You two! He roared. His eyes burned with rage. It's because of you that Whis is gone. He exploded forward, aura trailing like a comet's tail. His fists trembled with divine fury. But before he could reach the ground, crack! A golden flash. Brohan appeared in the air ahead of him, faster than even Beerus could track, and with a single backhanded slap, he smashed the god of destruction sideways out of the sky. His body spiraling like a meteor, crashing violently into the ground below with an earth-splitting impact. Boom. The planet shook before Frieza could even react. How dare you! He snarled. He transformed instantly into his black form, aura twisting into a galaxy of dark stars. He launched forward, claws glowing, but he too was met with the same brutal greeting. Slam! Brohan pivoted midair and slammed his foot into Frieza's chest, sending him crashing next to Beerus. Two of the strongest beings in the multiverse flattened. The wind howled around Brohan's still body. As dust cleared, he stood alone in the air, watching the two gods below. His eyes narrowed. What are they doing here? He muttered. He hadn't seen either of them since their last encounter, since they'd escaped on Bulma's ship, tails between their legs. Why now? Back on the battlefield, the Guardian, still exchanging blows with God Piccolo, paused for the briefest moment, sensing something familiar. His voice echoed calmly. Is that the god of destruction of Universe 7? He narrowed his gaze. Piccolo didn't waste the opening. He inhaled deeply, then unleashed a devastating mouth blast of raw divine energy. Dragon's breath. A torrent of emerald fire surged from his mouth, the force of it strong enough to rip valleys apart. It roared across the air and collided with the Guardian, exploding into a blinding light. Boom! A massive crater formed beneath the impact, the sky above it turning white-hot from the energy spike. But as the smoke began to clear, Piccolo's eyes sharpened. From within the blast zone, a silhouette emerged, unmoving, untouched. The Guardian hovered there, arms crossed, not a scratch on him. A scream, raw, primal, echoed across the battlefield once more. It wasn't just noise, it was Goku, his voice cracking through the chaos, layered with pain and desperation. His body convulsed again. Dark cracks of unstable ki burst from his skin like lightning, twisting violently through the air. His heart wasn't racing anymore. It was slowing down. But this wasn't recovery. This was worse. It was the final stage, the point of no return. Goku's life energy was vanishing. His heart rate dipped lower and lower, like a dying rhythm in a forgotten melody. Brohan's eyes went wide. His chest rose sharply, panic pushing through his confidence. "Damn it!" he hissed. Inside his head, Wukong's voice rang out sharply. "You need to decide, Saiyan, now!" Brohan growled. "I know!" But before he could speak again, something flickered in his memory. A buried line. A possibility. "Wait!" He turned his head sharply toward the fallen Saiyan prince nearby. "Vegeta!" he shouted. The proud warrior, still crouched on one knee, barely raised his head. His face was pale, his energy flickering, but his eyes met Brohan's, worn, bloodshot, but sharp. Brohan kept going. "That technique, the one you learned from the Yard Rot Master, the spirit fission, doesn't it allow you to separate fused beings?" Vegeta's eyelid twitched. He couldn't speak, but he nodded. That was enough. Brohan's mind sparked with sudden realization. He remembered a moment before the final battle, something Sharon had said just before the fusion with Piccolo had taken place. The Dragon Balls will turn to stone and won't awaken for 1,000 years. But if Piccolo had fused with all the eternal dragons, then even when the 1,000 years passed, the balls would still be locked in their petrified state, useless. Unless they separated the dragons from Piccolo. Brohan's thoughts raced. If Vegeta can use spirit fission to unfuse Piccolo, then we could release the eternal dragons. And if we store the Dragon Balls inside the Hyperbolic Time Chamber for 1,000 days, that's about 3 years in that realm. We can bypass the weight entirely. He clenched his fist. Then I could revive everyone who died. Everyone I accidentally sacrificed with my Kai Drain. A smirk crept across his face. "I'm a genius." He gave himself the praise out loud. And honestly, it was a brilliant plan. Bold, creative. Only someone with Brohan's unique energy knowledge could have even imagined it. But there was a problem. A big one. Brohan didn't know the whole truth. He didn't know the eternal dragons wanted to be free. They had accepted fusion with Piccolo on one condition, that he'd set them free when the time was right. Piccolo had even staked the fate of his people, and himself, on their cooperation, and that promise couldn't be broken lightly. But Brohan couldn't hear that part. Even though his mind could connect with others, his thought-reading ability was limited. He could only focus on one person's thoughts at a time. And right now, all of Piccolo's concentration, every ounce, was focused on fending off the Guardian. He didn't even have the bandwidth to think the warning, let alone say it out loud. So Brohan moved forward with his plan. "All right," he said. "I've made my decision." He floated down and placed both hands out, one against Vegeta's back, the other on Goku's. The air shimmered around them. A golden pulse began to spread from his palms, crackling with energy, as he began to drain raw ki from Universe 7. Streams of light and color, primal, divine, mortal, all flowed into him. His hands glowed brighter and brighter. Then, he pushed that energy into both Saiyan warriors at once, trying to channel the life energy back into them. Vegeta's body responded instantly. His skin lit up with purple streaks of lightning. His muscles tightened. His breathing eased. The ki was being absorbed smoothly. But then, something went wrong. Goku's body rejected it. Not like a block, but like an immune system in revolt. The golden energy surged, but as soon as it touched Goku's aura, it rebounded, sparking in reverse, like two mismatched frequencies grinding against each other. "What in the hell?" Brohan muttered. He looked down, stunned. Why wasn't it working? Why was Goku's body refusing the energy? It didn't make sense. Everything about Kai, about life energy, should have allowed this to work. And yet, something deeper was going on inside Goku. Something even Brohan couldn't see. Wukong's voice echoed through Brohan's mind, calm but heavy with truth.
I figured this would happen.
He paused, watching Goku's body tremble as the light in his chest flickered. The moment I saw that Saiyan Goku, I sensed it. He's not just strong, he's something more. He's what we call an Omni. Brohan blinked. A what?
Wukong explained.
It's a title very few in existence carry, the same kind of title as Zeno, though on a smaller scale. It means Goku is bound, linked to his universe. He's part of its very fabric. Brohan's heart skipped a beat. Wait, so you're saying, Wukong continued, yes, Goku draws strength from Universe 7 itself, and as long as it thrives, so does he. But if the universe weakens, or worse, dies, then so does he. And then, it made perfect sense.
Goku's body had been rejecting the foreign ki not because he couldn't absorb it, but because that unstable, stolen energy was damaging his own life source, his universe.
Goku, barely able to lift his head, managed to shout with the last breath of strength he had left. Stop!
His voice cracked, filled with raw desperation.
You're gonna kill them! He didn't mean the enemies. He meant his people, his stars, his planets, his entire universe. Brohan froze. He looked down at his own hands, still glowing with golden light, still draining energy from everything. The grass, the animals, the oceans, even the sun itself. The sky above was starting to darken unnaturally. What have I become? Brohan whispered, staring wide-eyed. I actually convinced myself that this was the right thing to do. He gritted his teeth, overwhelmed with guilt. Desperation had pushed him to the edge. His fusion was down to just 5 minutes. God Piccolo was barely holding the Guardian at bay, and he believed, Goku and Vegeta were about to die. Anyone would have made that call,
wouldn't they?
But just then, a voice steadied the storm. Don't worry, son. Goku, eyes shut, lips barely moving.
I'm not gonna die. Not today. Not after everything we've been through. And then, Goku did something divine. He reached out, not with his fists, not with energy, but with his soul. He focused deep within and spoke silently to the very essence of Universe 7. People of this universe, I need your help.
The wind shifted. There are beings who want to bring harm to this world, our world. I can't stop them alone. So please, lend me just a little bit of your strength. It was a call that echoed across all space and time, just like the spirit bomb, but more refined, more connected. Animals stirred, trees trembled, rivers shimmered. The sky lit up as energy poured forth, not ripped away, but given freely. Voluntarily, starting with the planet's green life, then from the creatures, and then from the people. Across the cosmos, they responded, not consciously, but subconsciously. They felt the call of their Omni, their protector, and they answered. What is this? Muttered the Guardian as he floated above. Confused, he looked down. He could sense it, energy flowing into the Saiyan, an influx of pure universal Kai. But how?
His face twisted in disbelief.
This is Zeno's technique. How is a mortal using this? His disbelief turned to rage. This is madness. He charged, fury burning in his eyes, aiming straight for Goku like a missile of divine punishment. But before he could strike,
Piccolo was there.
Not this time. The Guardian's eyes widened just before his fist collided hard with Piccolo's gut, piercing through his stomach with sheer force. Get out of my way! He hurled Piccolo like a ragdoll, slamming him to the ground below with a thunderous crash. The impact tore a crater the size of a mountain. A hole gaped in Piccolo's abdomen. But then, he began to regenerate. Steam hissed from his wounds. That bastard's faster than before? Piccolo grunted, staggering back to his feet. I knew what he was going to do. I even sensed it. But I couldn't react. I didn't have the speed. He looked up, face darkened with frustration. He was holding back this whole time. Above them, the Guardian was now unleashing hell. A relentless barrage of energy blasts, dozens per second, rained down like comets. Each blast whistled through the sky like the roar of a dragon. Brohan leapt in front of Goku and Vegeta, deflecting every single one with open palm blocks, spinning kicks, and precise ki barriers. Every movement was sharp, martial, taijutsu, refined with power. Not one blast gets through.
Then,
a sudden light, soft at first, then brilliant, A white glow began to shine around Goku's body. It wrapped around him like a cocoon of hope, energy repairing his broken cells. His heart rate stabilized.
Vegeta rose next, aura crackling. The ki Brohan had given him had finally settled in.
They weren't at full strength, far from it, but they were alive, ready. Goku took a deep breath and slowly, carefully, cut the connection with Universe 7 anymore, and people would have started dying.
"That's enough,"
he whispered. No more lives would be traded.
Now it was their turn to fight back. Brohan didn't wait.
He charged at the Guardian again, fists blazing with energy. Speed folded across space itself. Piccolo flew alongside him, merging their momentum into a two-pronged blitz. Slam! Brohan's fist smashed into the Guardian's ribs, sending shockwaves across the sky. Piccolo grabbed the Guardian's legs mid-air, spun, and slammed him into the ground with crushing force. Then launched him back into the sky with a swift uppercut. Brohan followed up with a massive energy attack. The blast erupted on contact, filling the sky with a violent surge of blue and gold. As the smoke cleared, the Guardian's silhouette stood. He was hurt now. His armor cracked. His breathing was louder. His smirk was gone. "You pieces of shit!" And that's it for today's episode, guys. If you watched to the end, then that could be an indication that you enjoy the series. So please leave a like on the video. Thank you and take care.